live! Who's this guy? This is my alter ego. We just got this a couple weeks ago, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. This is my stick figure man. Usually he's in our front in our display case, but I brought him back here today to keep me company. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. This is RockSim Live. My name is Tim Van Milligan, and this is Flat Tim. We use Flat Tim to greet our customers as they come in, because everybody wants to see me. So this is a way for me to indulge those people without me having to be here. Well, it's a lot of fun. I noticed this morning when I came in, it had a lay around its neck. So the team around here is having a little bit of fun with it too. One day they put it in Michelle's office and closed the door, and then when she walked in, she freaked out. So, whoa, what is Tim doing in here? And it was Flat Tim. So this is RockSim Live. We're not here to talk about Flat Tim. We're here to talk about RockSim, RockSim Pro, and the Launch Visualizer. And if you have questions about any of those, we'll be happy to answer them. Yeah, there's a lot of people in the house today. Woo! We have Michael O'Brien, Jim Hammond, Basil. Wow, and other people who haven't checked in yet. But if you, I got a monitor over here. That's why I'm looking. If you haven't checked in yet, say hello. I'm glad you're here. So Michael says, "What's up with the hand wrap?" I get tennis elbow occasionally, and I aggravated it this week. I was out in my yard cutting some trees down with a chainsaw. And that vibration, my wrist didn't like it. It's here in my arm right here. And my doctor says to cure it, you have to keep your wrist from bending, because when you bend your wrist backwards like this, it puts stress on that tendon right there, and that's what's causing the pain. So you got to kind of isolate your wrist so that the elbow can heal. So that's what that's about. It happens. I've been wearing this one for many years, on occasion. It's like 2 weeks at a time, and then it will go away, and then it comes back. It's usually when I'm aggravating it doing yard work. So the moral of the story is stop doing yard work. Jim is from Broomfield, Colorado. We have Rosa from Ottawa. We haven't seen Rosa in a while. And BAA Aerospace, which is Basil, asked, "It's my first time using RockSim. How does it work?" It works really well. We're going to show you how it works today. And we have Kevin's Models and More checking in from Las Vegas. Wow, got a lot of people in the house. I got a couple of questions. There was one that came in from Carlos, and I had one by email, and then we'll get to Basil's question about how RockSim works. And Michael O'Brien says, "Launch rockets instead of doing yard work." I'm all for that. I gotta wait until next Saturday for our next scheduled launch. Yeah, and I got some rockets that I want to fly, so I'm excited about it. Let me bring up my screen here so you can see RockSim. This is RockSim. The first question came in from Carlos, and this was being live. He asked, I have an Apple AirTag and I use an iPhone to hunt it. I want to use the rocket. I want to use an iPhone to hunt for the rocket in tall grass. Please show us how to make an 11-gram AirTag payload disc that is 1.26 inches in diameter and 8 millimeters high. And what BT, which stands for body tube, would an AirTag fit in? So if it's 1.26 inches in diameter, so what you do for that, Let's bring up the Apogee website. So here is my screen, which you can see, and I'm waiting for our website to load. And why is it taking for long to load? There it goes. And I want to go to the body tubes. So our website is apogeerockets.com. If you come here to body shop, and then come down here to building supplies, and then you come over here to body tubes, and now we're looking for a body tube in here that is 1.26 inches in diameter. Man, our website is crawling right now. What is going on? Is it our website or is it my internet? If I'm live streaming, it can't be the internet. So it's got to be our website. Well, maybe it'll come up. Anyway, there we go, body tubes. So if you scroll down here on the body tube page, so 1.26 inches. So now we got to convert to millimeters. So you bring up your calculator. Here's my calculator. Where's my calculator? There's the calculator. So here's a calculator. So 1.25 inches times 25.4 is the conversion. So you multiply anything in inches times 25.4. And you get that is 30.5 millimeters in diameter. So we need a tube at least 30.5. So here's 29 to 54s. So I am guessing that this is going to fit in a BT55. Man, this is running really slow. So I can go into RockSim. Yep, that's not RockSim. Here's RockSim. So I go into RockSim, and I'm going to look for a rocket that's a BT55. And not BT55. So what do we got as a BT55 kit? How about a Schrock's Ibis? So I'm typing in IBIS, see what I got. Here's an ibis.rocket file. Open that. Save that one? No, I don't care. So here's a IBIS rocket. That's what it looks like. And if we go to the 2D, it will tell us it's 1.325 inches in diameter. And so that is greater than 1.26. So it will fit into this rocket. And he says it's 8 millimeters long. Another rocket that it would fit into is our fin-shape science fair rocket. Let me try that one, because that one has a payload bay. And if it has a payload bay, then I don't have to do anything. Fin-shape. Here we go. Fin-shape science experiment rocket. Open that. Save that one? No. I know it'll fit in that one, but this is the same diameter rocket, 1.32 inches, and this one has a payload bay. You can't tell. Maybe I'll go back to 3D. See this red tube right here? That's the payload bay. And as long as it's greater than 8 millimeters, I can just drop it in. So you can see here, the room that I have is right, well, actually, it would fit into the couplers too. So this right here, the pink line is the nose cone, and that's the shoulder. This red line right here that goes all the way back to here is a tube coupler that holds the tube together. So if it could fit into this payload, then it would be just fine. So what I can do is to add that to the rocket. It's real easy. So we just go here to Rocket Design Components tab, and I'm going to select that tube right there, that payload tube, because I need to put my payload in that tube. Because if I don't select it, it's RockSim going to wonder where that payload goes. So I'm going to model it as he wants to model it as a disc, 1.26 inches in diameter and 8 millimeters tall. So I'm just going to make it an inside tube. I'm going to click cancel out of the database because I'm not going to look for a tube. I'm going to create my own tube. And I'm looking at the rear end of the rocket right now, and I can change it to the side view. And outside diameter is 1.26 inches. And the length, we're going to change it to millimeters. And then type in 8. And you can see it drew it right there. And now we need to just slide it back. Using the slider, you can see that little blue square is moving back. Okay, so that's where it is. This thing has a mass. Oh, it doesn't have a material. And he says, he didn't say how much weight it has. Oh, 11 grams. Okay, let's start with paper tube. And I got 7.6 grams. Okay, so I made a disc. This is a solid disc because it doesn't have an inside diameter. So you think of like a coin, just 8 millimeters long, and that it looks like it fits just fine because it's not touching the tube anywhere right there. So a BT55 will work. We also call that a 33 millimeter tube. And now I just have to adjust the mass, and so I'm going to go here to mass override. I'm going to say use this mass right here of 11 grams. And now that item weighs 11 grams. This is the calculated weight right here, but notice right here it says mass override is on. When I check that box right there, that's what turns that on and off. So if I turn it off, it goes away. If I turn it back on, it comes back on. You can see also that center of gravity shifted just a little bit because it's a little bit heavier. And there you go. So that's it, Carlos. It's that easy. You just make a disc, you adjust the weight, you put it where you want, and now you have an AirTag in your rocket. Okay, I'm looking at my messages over here. Tom writes, how does RockSim calculate streamer descent rates? Does it consider varying length to width, flat material versus folded, etc.? Okay, Tom, that's a really good question. I've been talking to my programmers about the streamers. So let's put a streamer in this rocket right here, and we'll talk about streamers. So right now it's showing a parachute right here. We can leave that parachute alone. I'm just going to put in a streamer. So I'm going to select the tube, come over here to streamer, and it adds a streamer. And now it's just trying to pick one from the database. Whenever you're entering a part, it always looks in the database first. You don't have to select from it, but it looks there first. I'll just grab one here, a 4-inch wide Mylar streamer, click OK. Okay, so that blue right there, this box right there is my streamer. I need to move it back because, as I said before, this is a coupler right there. And my streamer is kind of interfering with the coupler, so I'll just change the location. Okay, so now it's behind the coupler. There's also a parachute in there. Okay, so his question is, how does it calculate the coefficient of drag for a streamer? Descent rate. It's going to, you as a user have the ability to vary the coefficient of drag. And that's this number right here. The smaller the number, the faster it's going to fall. How does it? We searched in the NAR database of R&D reports for streamer descent reports, and so we gathered all those streamer reports, and we tried to figure out based on what these people used, what the descent rate would be for the rocket of a given weight versus the big things are the length and the width. So right now, it's calculating a really fast descent rate here. I'm going to say recommend a streamer and see what happens. It's still like really fast. I'm not trusting that number because that's like supersonic. That's coming down way too fast. Yeah, let me zoom out here, see my mass. My mass right now is 88 grams. We're going to have to figure out the descent rate by actually looking at a simulation. But if you change the length and the width, I'll go back to 4-inch wide. Okay, so now, yeah, so by adjusting the width, all of a sudden my descent rate changed. So if I make it a 5-inch wide, watch the descent rate there. So I'll type in a 5 and then hit the tab and see it dropped a little bit. So how it calculates is the width and the length. And let's see if I make it longer. Let's like make it really long here, 80 inches. And then hit tab and watch that number right there. See, it dropped. So a longer streamer is going to give you a slower descent, which kind of makes sense. And then if you fold the streamer, and this is accordion folds. Again, this comes from the NAR R&D reports. And if you fold the streamer, you know, it drops down even further. You know, it's like a little bit more than half the rate. So folding it, and you got to keep the folds in there because that gives it a 3D effect. If your folds just kind of straighten out, you're not going to get the benefit of fold. So I would only use folds. Check it if you're using like Mylar, 1 mil thick Mylar, which is 0.001 inches. That stuff will hold a fold, and that's how we find it. We did find a bug, and this is why I was talking to my programmers, because you can vary that coefficient of drag right there. The problem is that the bug is if that number is greater than 1, there's a bug. Under 1.0, you're fine. And most streamers will be under 1. That's just the way they're calculated. But we had a weird situation where somebody had they did actual testing and they had a little bit greater than 1. And then we discovered the bug. So they're working on that, but it's not quite fixed yet. It's buried deep in the code. And yeah, when you get deep in the code, it's the people that are working on it now are not the original programmers, so they have to learn. It's kind of like, digging through, a fat book, looking, like maybe like the Bible or something, and you're looking for a specific phrase of words, and but you don't even know what the phrase of words is. But you're looking for it. So that's why they haven't found it yet, but as soon as they find it, they'll fix it. Let's run a simulation. See, like right now it's showing 9 miles an hour, but we haven't put a motor in. So when we put a motor in, it's going to fall a bit faster because it's going to weigh more. So let's put a rocket motor in. So this gets back to the question from Basil: how does RockSim work? Okay, so what we did, Basil, here was we loaded a rocket, and you can get rocket designs off the internet. If our website was working faster, I'd show you. Look at that. What is going on? Yeah, it's still crawling. Let me try YouTube. Yeah, even YouTube's crawling, so I don't know what's going on. But we're still streaming, so information is still flowing. It's just flowing slower. But if you go on the internet, Basil, and you type in the name of your favorite rocket, and then type in, like Apogee, Aspire, RockSim file, it'll take you right to where you can download it. And you can do this for a lot of kits, most of the kits, because we give a free copy of RockSim to every manufacturer, because we want them to put RockSim in their, we want them to put their kits into RockSim for people that are searching for them. It just makes it convenient for everybody. Everybody wins. So we loaded the design. Over here, I can view the rocket in 3D or 2D. I can look at a base view. This is side view. This is top view. This is 3D. You can see when you click on a part, it isolates the part and makes everything else ghosted. So if I click on that centering ring back there, well, it thought I clicked on a tube. And then it highlights it up there. So you load a design, and then you go to put in a rocket motor. So on this rocket, you come up here to load a rocket engine. So prepare for launch. This symbol right here is kind of like the base of the rocket, and then two arrows pointing down to the blast deflector. So that's what that symbol up there at the top means. So now when you do that, the first tab will be engine selection, and it will tell you what motor mount size you have. I have an 18 millimeter, and the name of that tube that it's in is called body tube. And then I can come down here to choose an engine, and then I can just pick. Right now I'm looking for only the motors that match the motor mount diameter, so it's got to be 18 millimeters, and you can see all these are 18. So let's pick, I'm looking for an Estes C6, and then you select the delay, engine delay right here in seconds, so then you can come down here, and these are my choices. I'm going to choose a C6.5. Engine overhang is how far the motor hangs out the back of the rocket. So we'll click OK there. So now we have the rocket loaded. Flight events, it tells us when parachutes and streamers and staging happens. Remember, we left the parachute in there, and then we added the streamer. And I'm going to say no event on the parachute, so don't deploy it at all. So we just want to look at the streamer, and it's going to eject at the maximum ejection delay. And remember, we said 5 seconds, a C6.5, so that means 5 seconds after the motor burns out, the ejection charge will go off. Simulation controls, we just leave that alone. These are the default configuration, and that's good. RockSim runs just fine with that. You should probably never have to change it. There's a couple of situations you might, but not very often. Starting state, we have a 36-inch long launch rod, and I've got it angled at 7 degrees, and this is my angle. I can tweak it here anywhere I want. We'll just say 7 degrees. That was good. Hit tab. Whenever you type in a number, hit tab so it accepts the value. My launch conditions is my weather, and I'm going to leave my weather alone, but I've got a wind at 8 miles an hour. And competition settings, it's turned off right now, and just leave it off. It won't help you. And then we can launch the rocket or do a flight profile. And both of these do the same thing, except they'll both launch the rocket, but the flight profile will take it one step further and show us what the trajectory looks like. So I'm going to hit flight profile because I want to see what this rocket looks like as it goes up. And it's running the simulation, and it created the flight profile. So here's the rocket right here. And Basil, these black lines we call the weathercocking cone. It kind of gives us an indication. We want the rocket to go up. We don't want it to go sideways. And we want the apogee point to be within this cone. And if it's within the cone, that's a great flight. If it's outside of the cone for the apogee point, that's kind of an indication that something's wrong. We want it to go up because up is the most safe direction. And so right here is kind of like the launch button, and we'll click on that and you'll see the rocket take off. It wiggled a little bit coming off the pad, but it's going up straight. And there's our apogee point, which is in the cone. And this blue line right here is the streamer coming down. And if I pause it right here, and if I go to the details, I can look at the descent rate. So my Y velocity, which is my vertical velocity, is 9.9 miles per hour, just under 10 miles per hour. And that's a pretty good descent rate. That's nice and slow. I do have an X velocity of 8 miles an hour. And why do we have an 8 mile an hour X velocity? Which, well, it's because there's wind, and we set it at 8 miles an hour. And so the rocket is drifting with the wind exactly at 8 miles an hour. It's not going to go any faster than the wind, and it's not going to go any slower than the wind. It just goes with the wind at 8 miles an hour. And so what we can see here is, the rocket coming down, and the velocity is staying pretty constant. And it touches down here, and I can get my range, how far away it lands, 389 feet. And my current altitude is 1.79 feet, which is pretty close to zero. And if I move the slider bar and I go back, I can find my peak altitude right about there. And that is 554 feet right there. This right here is smoke, and the smoke also drifts with the wind, and so you can see that it's drifting just fine. If I change my streamer, so let's go back and I'll change that streamer. I found the streamer in the parts tree. I double clicked on it and it brings up this window. And let's unfold it. It says it should be about 16.74 miles an hour. Click OK. And I'm just going to launch it again. Just hit the flight profile again. Let it run. And I'm going to speed things up here so the rocket takes off really fast, goes up to the top, starts coming down. Okay, so by this point, it should have stabilized and should hit its final velocity, critical velocity. And let's hit the details. And our Y velocity, about 17 miles an hour. And still we have an 8 mile an hour crosswind. And this one lands a lot closer. Before we were well over 300 feet. Now we're just over 200 feet. So now it's coming down faster. So hopefully, Thomas, that answered your question about how does RockSim calculate descent velocity of streamers. Carlos says, Tim is so much faster than I am at RockSim. Well, I've been using it a little bit longer. Chris wants to make a rocket out of flat Tim. For those of you who are joining us in the middle, this is flat Tim right here. See, it's flat. When it came, when we ordered it, it folded. So there's a fold line here, a fold line there, fold line there. And so it will fold, but it looks to be like 18 or 19 inches is the fold. And it's made out of, what are they called, gator board, which is kind of like corrugated plastic. So it's not going to roll up. So you can't roll it up and stick it in the rocket. That's funny. I guess you could make a rocket out of it. We have Marcel from Parker, Colorado, and Johan from the Netherlands is here. All right. I did have another question, and this one came from Daniel Olson. Let me get a sip of water here. He wrote to me, why does the optimal delay value change when I adjust the delay entered for the simulation? Okay, well, one, I'm pretty sure in version 9, that's where you'll see it. If you're running version 10, I don't think it shows up, but we'll check it. So optimal delay is what he's talking about. So why does this number change when he runs his simulation and when he's changing his delay right here? So first, let me go here to prepare for launch. And right now I got a C6.5 in here, so let's make it a C6.3. Come on. C6.3, and hit flight profile. And it running the simulation. Okay, it does change. And I'll explain what's going on. Okay, so how did I know it changed? Because I saw it change right over here. So the last time we had a C6.5 and the optimal delay was 4.54 seconds, and now with the different motor, a C6.3 instead of a C6.5, it's a 3.84. So why is that? So the optimal delay is the amount of time where it would take the rocket to hit that, right at peak apogee. So if the ejection charge popped out right there, what time value is that? And so we would want, you know, the C6.3, we would actually want a 3.84 second delay to get right at that apogee. But that's actually not the case. But this 4.54 is correct. So first, okay, so where does that 3.84 seconds? So right now, when the rocket's taking off, and you see the smoke coming out, as long as the smoke is coming out, that means the engine is still burning. And we can't start counting the delay until the motor burns out, because that's what the delay is. It's the trigger point is after burnout. And so right here, now we're coasting. If we can find the actual time, if we go to the details and we look at thrust right here, right now thrust is 0, so we know we're burned out. So if we back it up a little bit, so 1.67 seconds, we have thrust. And I think if I hit my arrow key on my keyboard, I can step through this very slowly. So I'm just going to step through it until my thrust drops down to 0. So that will be engine burnout. So I'm looking for it. Okay, so it's starting to drop off now. Dropping off, dropping off. It's getting really low right here. Okay, burnout. So 1.87 seconds. Now we can start counting. So if I bring out my calculator, 1.87 plus 3 is 4.87. So at 4.87 seconds, so when this number gets to 4.87, that's when the streamer is going to pop out. So I'm just going to slide it along to 4.87. So here at 4.84, still no streamer. 8.5, no streamer. Well, I guess it must have been like 1.86 when it was actually burned out. And now we see the streamer. And so what's going on here is, you see the streamer is below the rocket, when the rocket body is upwards. It's kind of like, you know, here's the rocket, and then down here is the streamer. So what's going on is the rocket is still going up, and the streamer is coming out. and so it's still coasting upwards. That's the point I wanted to make, is the rocket had a lot of velocity, and even with the streamer out, it didn't stop immediately. It's still coasting upwards a little bit with the streamer going behind it, going up. As soon as it hits apogee, it's going to swing around, and now the streamer will be above the rocket. So here at 4.87 seconds, I'm going to step through it, 0.88. Okay, I'm just stepping through here, waiting for it to get up. Okay, so now it's starting to get to the very top. And if I look at my altitude down here, you'll see the altitude is also increasing a little bit, still going up. It's arcing over. Okay, so now it's right there. Yeah, 5.7 seconds. So if we go back to my calculator here, 5.7 minus the 1 point, what would you say, 886 is what we said? What did I do? Clear. 5.7 minus 1.86, 3.84. So it coasted, another 0.84 seconds up to the top with the streamer going behind it. So that's why the optimal delay for this particular rocket motor is 3.84 seconds. And then if we change it to this one here, now it's 4.5. And at this point, see, I wanted to show you, see the little arrows inside the parachute? So this arrow right here is pointing upwards on the C6-3. So the rocket was still moving upwards when the deployment happened. On this one right here, the C6-5, the arrow is pointing downwards, which means that the rocket arced over the top and was coming down at that point. And that's how I know that 4.54 seconds would be the optimal delay, because at 5 seconds it goes too far over the top. And so if I changed it to a C6-7, this number will still stay the same. So I'm going to go back here, change it to a C6-7. I'll just do a launch again, just show you. See, now we did the C6-7, and it's still 4.54. So that means the rocket arced over the top, and the peak altitude was still 4.54. So if your numbers are changing, what that means is your delay is not long enough, because as soon as the delay is longer than it actually takes to get to apogee, then that number will stay the same every time. And this number is going to change based on the weather conditions and the rocket. Obviously, if you have a heavier rocket, it's not going to go as high. Or if you have different wind conditions, it's going to arc into the wind more. So let me change the launch conditions here, and let's make it, a 15-mile-an-hour wind. And flight profile. Okay, so notice that the rocket before started here, now it's over here because it's going to arc into the wind a bit. So we're not going to get the same altitude, and our optimal delay will be different as well. And so now our apogee point is on the outside of the cone. So now this kind of, like I said before, when your apogee point is on the outside, that's an indication that it's going too far horizontal. Okay, it does land closer to the pad because it arced over and went into the wind and then dropped down closer. But let's go back to the summary. You can see our peak altitude, went from 556 down to 503. So it lost about 50 feet of altitude and our optimal delay, it would get to the apogee point quicker because it's arcing into the wind. So on windy days, that's why on windy days you want to use a shorter delay in your rocket motor. So on a calm day, if you're using a C6.5, and that would probably be fine. But if it's a windy day, you want to drop down to a C6.3 because if you don't, the rocket is going to arc way over the top, and its apogee point is going to be outside your cone. And then the other thing is your deployment speed is going to be a lot higher. And in this case, we're an unsafe deployment speed. Meaning the rocket arced over and it was coming down and it was picking up speed as it was coming over the top. And that's never a good thing. So your slowest speed is always at apogee. And so we want to make sure that we're in the safe. And you can find that deployment, well, here it is right here, velocity at deployment, 61 miles an hour. So that's kind of too fast. I think our criteria for safe is under 50 miles an hour. So this one is just a touch over. This one's way over. And these are fine. Okay, so hopefully, Daniel, that answered your question on why the optimal delay will change. And it's just because your rocket, your delay is too short. Once you get it long enough, it'll be fine. If you run a recommended motors chart, it will find the optimal delay for you. So if I go to recommended motors, for this rocket, to run that, you just go up here to prepare for launch, and then just come down to recommend motors. And I'm going to say all manufacturers, all types, but I want to use my values. So remember, now I have a 15 mile an hour wind, and now it's going to run the launches. And you see it ran it once, and now it's running it a second time. And the reason it runs a second time is so it can find that optimal delay value. And so this is the normal flight simulations. This is the recommended motor flight simulation. And I have a whole bunch of them that are not recommended. In a 15 mile an hour wind, there's only a couple of them that you should use, and these are high thrust motors. Yeah. And if you want to sort it, just click up here, and then it will sort it. And if you click it again, it just flips it. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that are recommended, and all these other ones don't even bother with. But the optimal delays, when it ran the simulations the second time, it was looking for that optimal delay. So now if I run it again, if I put a 3.57 delay in the rocket at this point, I should match that number. So let's try it. 3.57. So choose an engine, C6.3 or C5.3, C5, and I'm going to do a custom delay, and I wanted 3.57. I'm going to use that and click OK. Just double check that. Yep, 3.57. So now we have a C5-3.57. You can't actually buy that motor, but we can, in RockSim, we can run it. And so if I do it here, we should see, we should be really close to deploying right at apogee. Oh, yeah, it was really close. You can see it, and now it tells me my optimal delay is just 0.2 of a second. It's close enough in the engineering world. Okay, let me get a sip of water and check the comments here. So hopefully that answered the question about optimal delay. Mark Sell says, I noticed that the Artemis rocket logo and the Apogee logo are similar. Are we going to get an Apogee Artemis kit for Christmas? We do sell the Quest SLS rocket. So, yeah, we do sell it. You could call it an Artemis. Yeah, and why is that? Why is NASA stealing our logo? Johan says, oh, did I mention my 6 cluster 18 millimeter and 124 rocket is done for gluing together? Cool. That means he's getting ready to fly it. Awesome. Okay, we still have 15 minutes to go, and I don't have any more questions. So if you have a question, the comment field is open. We're here to answer your questions. Let me see if my internet is working any faster. Man, oh man. It's just crawling slow. Maybe it's working faster for you guys. But I mean, let's try like Google News. Yeah, Google News is coming up. Brutal winds in Southern California. Wow. Yeah, today we're having a nice cool day here in Colorado Springs. 74 degrees Fahrenheit. That's awesome. So it must be our website that's running slow. Yeah, it's just running real slow. So I can't go to the internet. Tim is drinking that strange Colorado Springs water again. Yeah, this is water with water enhancer in it. Colorado Springs has some really great water. Because our water comes from snow melt, it doesn't come out of the ground. It comes from rain and snow that lands in the mountains that are behind me. It's really pure, and so it doesn't pick up any contamination from the ground, you know, like lead or anything like that. It doesn't. Our water here in Colorado doesn't have any taste. You know, when I go visit other places, you can taste the water. Yeah. Carlos says, AirTags make noise. Do you recommend a vent hole shape? Yeah, if you got a beeper inside your rocket, put a hole in it so that the sound can get out. The bigger the hole, the louder it will be. Yeah, and you might want to put it around on both sides of the rocket so you can hear it. It's a good idea. Any other questions? Well, every time I say get any more questions, I got to wait 20 seconds because there's a delay of 20 seconds between when I say, do you have any questions, and when you can start typing. I did have a question this week from somebody that wanted to learn how to install new motors into RockSim. Doing it in RockSim and RockSim Pro is identical. And my version, the version that most people have, there's a bug in the last one that we released, and engine edit wasn't working, but my engine edit today should be working. Oh, we got a question. Fatbank says, I run a sim and sometimes RockSim ejects the chute before the rocket launches. Okay. I think Fatbank, you might be running RockSim. Are you running RockSim Pro? Because you can do that in RockSim Pro. So let me bring up RockSim Pro. Carlos says, on the noisemaker, is a circle or rectangle better idea? I don't think it matters. What's going to matter is the size of the hole, you know, like the surface the area. Yeah, it shouldn't matter. Okay, so here is, let me load a rocket. Alpha 3. Everybody knows what an Alpha 3 looks like, right? So here's an Alpha 3. So I can tell I'm in RockSim Pro from up here. It looks identical to RockSim, and the difference between RockSim and RockSim Pro is you have, in RockSim Pro, you have a lot more flight event features. So you can do a lot more flight events. And one of those flight events is you can deploy your parachute on the way up, where you can't do that in RockSim. So let's load an engine in here. And we can say choose an engine. It doesn't matter what I choose. C12-8. Click OK. So here is flight events for RockSim Pro. Let me bring up RockSim and put it next to it. Flight events. Okay, so I can't see them together here. So this side is RockSim Pro. This side is RockSim. You can see that the flight events tab is a little bit different. It'll tell me this. It'll give me icons for the stage where RockSim doesn't have those icons. Location is, it's referenced from the center line. So if you're in a pod, it would tell you you were in a pod, like a strap-on booster, like on the SLS and the space shuttle that had the pods. So if your device was in a pod, it will tell you that's what location means. And then here I have a parachute and a streamer. Here I just have a parachute. In RockSim, we call it event description. In RockSim Pro, it's test criteria description. So we can set it up differently. So right here, it's set at deploy now, where in RockSim, normally by default, it's deploy at maximum ejection delay. In RockSim Pro, the default is deploy now. And what deploy now means, when there's a triggering event, start counting whatever, and then deploy. And our triggering event is pushing the launch button. So as soon as you push the launch button, and if it says deploy now, it's going to deploy the parachute while the rocket's still taking off. So if I hit the flight profile, maybe we can see it. Or maybe not. Okay, so here's the rocket sitting on the pad. It's still rendering. I don't know where I'm launching. Oh, this is from Cape Canaveral. This is the last time we ran it. This is actually Kennedy Space Center. No, this is Cape Canaveral. We were on one of the, I think these are the pads for SpaceX, because here are the Artemis pads up here at Kennedy Space Center. The difference between Kennedy Space Center is on, see there's a river right here. On this side of the river is Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and on this side is Kennedy Space Center. And so the river goes right up here, so it's on this side. So this is why these pads are at Kennedy Space Center, and these pads right here are Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. And I think we were launching from right here. And that's where the rocket is sitting. Let's zoom back in home, see the rocket on the pad. I'm a little bit zoomed in. Okay, so there's the rocket, and if we press launch, oh, parachute came out late. Parachute should have came out on the pad. But I think what's going on is actually the parachute is out. It's just the rendering doesn't show the parachute. And all this big white blob, that's smoke. So I think what's going on actually is the parachute is out. Let me turn the smoke off. So I can come to settings, display the flame and the smoke. Let's turn off these. Come on, click OK. And so now you just see the flame. And I think what's going on is the parachute is actually out as the rocket's taking off. So I think that should explain your question, Fatbank, is why you're seeing that. Marcel says, I am considering putting a limiter inside the body tube to limit or prevent parachute movement, specifically to prevent the parachute from shifting rearward during thrust. Any pros or cons to this idea? There is no cons to that idea. No cons at all. That's a thumbs up. I was flying a rocket this weekend, and it was a long rocket, and I needed to do that because I was actually flying the gliding parachute. I think I told you about this last weekend. I was going to try to fly it, and I did fly it. But the gliding parachute, you have the nose cone, and then inside of the tube, between the nose cone and the parachute, is this big controller. And this thing is heavy. It weighs like about 150 grams. And it was a long rocket, and I didn't want it to shift down, because the problem with it shifting down is your center of gravity moves. So if I go here to 2D, so here is the center of gravity, here's the center of pressure, and if you have something that's big and heavy at the front end and it slides back, the center of gravity is also going to slide back. And if the center of gravity slides back behind the center of pressure, the rocket's going to go unstable. And I had that exact situation on Saturday, where I didn't want this big heavy mass shifting downward and causing the rocket to go unstable. So how did what was my method? This affects the outside of the rocket, but it's not a bad way to do it. I took a piece of Kevlar string that was longer, wider than the diameter of the rocket, and I drilled a hole through the rocket, and I ran the Kevlar string through it, and I bent it and then glued it down to the sides of the rocket. So Kevlar doesn't burn from the exhaust, and so it prevented that mass from sliding back. It's just something that goes across the middle of the tube of the rocket. Now, if you don't want something hanging out the outside, then you might be able to glue the Kevlar in on the inside of the tube as you push it in. If you push it in with a dowel, gluing it along the sides of the tubes is kind of tricky, but I think it can be done. So go for that. There's no downside to it, other than it adds a little bit of complexity of building your rocket. I've had rockets, particularly really lightweight ones, when I fly FAI competition rockets. Those rockets are so light that the rocket motor is like twice as heavy as the rest of the rocket. And the rocket motor is in the back, and you have a parachute or streamer in the front, and if that streamer shifts backwards, it's going unstable. It happens all the time. Okay, Fatbank says, yes, he's going to check those flight events. That's good. Johan says, in our rocket club, it is mandatory above 50 millimeters. We call it ASPAR, anti-shift parachute ring. It looks like a centering ring. So I guess you could take a centering ring and, well, that'd be a really good idea. That'd be easy to do. Take your centering ring, I'm thinking like the thick centering rings, like an engine block type of centering ring, and wrap Kevlar around that, kind of like put in notches on the side, and then string the Kevlar across inside those notches, and now you can slide the whole thing inside your rocket. Or you could take some kind of mesh and drape it across the top. Like a wire screen. I've seen people use wire screens although they use the wire screens as part of an ejection baffle. That's a really good idea, Johan. Yeah, and the other thing is, like Johan says, is when your parachute shifts against the engine, you can easily burn holes in the chute with the deployment charge, even in Nomex pads. Yeah, that's possible. Yeah. It depends on how good your Nomex pad is. We used to sell what were called the pedal protectors. I love those things. And dyno chutes, unfortunately, they went out of business. So I'm trying to get them made outside. Those things work good. Nothing got by those things. All right, so we are at 3 o'clock, and I don't have any more questions. And for us, 3 o'clock is like early. Normally we go a little bit long because there's always good questions that you guys have. And these were great questions. But that will be it today. We'll call it a day. Here's Flat Tim again. So we'll be back next week, Friday. Today is the 6th, so that will be, no, today's the 9th. So that will be the 16th of September. And yeah, we'll be here. We'll answer your questions, RockSim, RockSim Pro, or the Launch Visualizer. And hopefully I have better internet connection. And maybe we could talk about engine edit and how to put an engine into either RockSim or RockSim Pro. So until next week, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go out and launch something.